All right, so it is Saturday morning. I got my coffee, taking a break in the work. Um, I got some notes on some stuff. So my question is, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment about Games Workshop dropping lines, and now they're the big bad whatever for something else. And again, I don't want to do any. I'm not doing any drama video about all of that, but it did make me think about why I got back into this, and I did have a plan. And it is the same plan as the wargaming industries have. So I guess my question is, once you bought your rules and your army, what is your game worth? It's worth one of these, a wooden nickel, as far as the games companies are concerned. That's what your gaming is worth. And that's fine, because you got what you want, they got what they want. Now, most of this video is going to be about a thing. And some of you are going to say, yeah, you're teaching me to suck eggs. But I kind of wanted to do a deep dive in it for a couple of reasons that got me thinking about it. And it's called planned obsolescence. So once you've bought something for the gaming industry, once enough people have it, it's obsolete. So I'm going to go through my notes and we're going to dive into planned obsolescence, what it is, how it affects the gaming industry, and how you can circumvent it as best you can. In fact, you can circumvent it a lot better than you think you can. So let's get into this. So planned obsolescence, it started before it kind of started. Well, who knows when it started. Basically, for example, when the light bulbs started lasting longer than they'd like, all the light bulb companies got together and said, hey, we need to make these last shorter, not longer. And then they set their engineers out to figure out how to make shorter lasting light bulbs, because they can't sell enough of them if they last too long. But it really started, according to the interwebs, when I did some research, in 1924, because Henry Ford and other companies, they did the mass production. All of a sudden, things were being produced in huge amounts. And Henry Ford was, well, you can have it any color you want as long as it's black. And that's all fine and good until the market saturation happened. That means anybody that could afford a car, that wanted a car, pretty much had a car by about 1924. And DuPont, who make color, I think they're the ones that bought General Motors. General Motors started to do a model year change with different colors. So it's kind of like fashion of cars. That made people want to buy a car even though they didn't need to. Because otherwise they're just replacing the car they got with the same car again. No one's going to do it. If you start adding things like that. So then they started, your car was obsolete because of its design, not because it didn't do what it was supposed to do anymore. That's planned obsolescence. The term was first coined in, 1932. There was a Bernard London pamphlet on ending the Depression. And they actually wanted to have government-imposed legal obsolescence limits on individual, on personal use items. That way, keeps more people in work, things are produced, things are bought, and that was the idea to end the Depression. Kind of heavy-handed, I think. But then again, it might have been easier than having a war, but who knows? That's not the way it went. So let's look at how companies make their stuff obsolete. There's a couple of ways. So the first one is perceived obsolescence, which is basically fashion. So they'll bring in waves of the way things are supposed to look, the way things are changed, and they'll change things from, for example, having a square corner to a rounded corner. All of a sudden, that looks modern now. And people that don't have that are then it's really horrible to say, but oh, you must be a loser. You don't have the latest one. It's a fashion thing. And companies are very good at that. I think Apple keeps changing theirs every 10 minutes. Every design they change. And if you don't have the latest Apple, um, you're not a proper Apple aficionado. And when people queue around the block to get the latest one, things like that. That is perceived obsolescence. It's fashion. And you don't belong, you don't fit in, you're a loser kind of mentality. It's very tribal. I don't like it, but, a lot of people do. And they'll argue that's not what it is, and they'll give you all kinds of reasons why they bought the latest one for very small incremental advantages or some disadvantages. But, it's a cult thing. Um, and a lot of wargamers, but we'll get into this, but a lot of wargamers fall into this as well, and they will. And I'm not banging on Games Workshop. There's other gaming companies out there that have exactly the same thing. But people will defend the company even when objectively it's a shit thing that they're doing, and we know why they're doing it. Subjectively, emotionally, some people are so invested that they will say, no, this is all correct, and we know why they're doing it, and they should be doing it, etc. That is all, comes into that same perceived obsolescence. If you perceive it, perception is reality. So that's perceived obsolescence. There is also contrived obsolescence, where something is designed to fail. A company, especially, for example, TV companies, they will put, when they design their TV, they will on purpose put components next to each other where one component runs hot and the component right next to it doesn't like heat. So the one component reduces the life of the next component. It is designed to fail within, like the light bulbs, designed to fail within an amount of time. And then together with that, you have the prevention of repairs. So there's a big fight going on in the US where I'm at right now, the Right to Repair Act, which I believe should be a thing. But big companies like John Deere, Apple, HP, they don't want that. They don't want people to be able to repair products that were bought from these companies. Their argument is it will reduce the value of their products, which is bullcrap. It will reduce their sales. And they hold back parts and schematics and all that good stuff so that it's very hard for a third party to repair their product. They want new sales. That's what it boils down to. So the prevention of repairs and with contrived obsolescence. Now you're like, what's this to do with wargaming? We'll get to that later on. Alright, so the next way that companies can make a product obsolete is called systemic obsolescence. So what they will do is they will withdraw investment in the product, and then in whatever system that product exists in, they will change so that it is just it's not usable anymore. And you can't use it, you won't use it, because it becomes economically not viable to use it, basically. And I guess a really bad example, but it's an example, is the PS2 port for keyboards. Used to be. There was nothing wrong with it, it was a keyboard. And then all of these things went away, serial ports, everything went to the USB port, and they said, oh, this is much better. Which it was, but it also made millions and millions of keyboards obsolete. That's a bad example, but there are lots of examples where companies will phase out a thing that they've developed for a new thing, and sometimes the gains are minimal, but it becomes the old thing becomes totally useless. Kind of paired with that is programmed obsolescence, where they will just after a certain time lock something out. A big one on that, and people have been sued over it, are things like a date chip on an inkjet cartridge. So once a certain date's gone by, The inkjet cartridge reports itself empty. HP got sued for that, and their reasoning was, well, once it's so old, it doesn't print as well, and then the quality of our product, because they're always interested in the quality of their product, of course they are, is diminished, and the customer should replace it with a new one to get the quality that they wanted. Which again, it's a BS answer. And they got sued for it, and they got told to stop doing it. But a programmed obsolescence exists. There are lots of other examples of this, lockouts and things like that, upgrades that diminish battery or diminish all kinds of things because they're controlled by software. So people suddenly notice that their battery isn't lasting as long as it used to before the software update. It's just nudges and pushes to buy the new product over a product that works just fine. And the other one is legal obsolescence. So we have, there are lobbying, there are governments and lobby groups, and again, you're thinking, what's this got to do with wargaming? Bear with me. I'm an old man, just bear with me. Legal obsolescence is where laws are passed. Doesn't have to be a government, but there are laws in place to protect or offer benefits or shut down certain products. So I know in Europe there are lots of laws now affecting the production of cars because they're pushing towards electric cars. So you've got certain zones where, and you get heavy taxed if you use this car, but not if you use that car. So there are legal pushes and punitive damage if you continue using an older product that, there are laws backing that up. So legal obsolescence. Now you might be asking, John, you mad old git, why? I mean, really, why does this exist? It is wasteful. It costs people money, especially people that can't afford stuff, to go out and have to keep rebuying things that work perfectly or did work perfectly until the manufacturer of that product actually broke it in one way or another, as said before. Well, the reason is because we can manufacture to such high quantities. I mean, the Industrial Revolution, just gears up, and now we're at a point now where we can flood a market. For example, if you think about when somebody releases a product and there's a lot of hype for it and everybody wants it, how long it takes until from release to when everyone's got it, depending on who's manufacturing it. And we're talking about the whole world. Few months later, hey, everybody's got it. And because they're manufacturing like crazy. And the thing is, with that availability of the quantity of manufacturing, markets get saturated pretty quickly. And a company cannot exist on what the residue is of things just break or people lose stuff or whatever. Modern companies have planned targets that they have to hit every year. And the problem with that is, especially as we go forward, it's become now that it used to be, what does it cost me to make this guy? And then slap my profit on top. And there we go. We can sell this many and make a profit, take that profit and, do what we want with it. But now our profit has become competitive. So because there are shareholders and 3 or 4 or 5, 6 companies doing what you do, let's say for an example, people that want to invest in your company and give you money to do things and make your company worth more, to build another factory, or that you're going to invest the money that they're giving you in. They want to see a return on it. But there's competition. You have to compete with other companies to get this shareholder money. And to do that, you have to keep rising the profits, rising the targets, because that's what they're going to be doing. And there you go. We've got inflation. We've got, increase in planned obsolescence, because now instead of selling a TV every 3 years, if we sold one every 2 years, that would be much better. And then, as part of that too, I'm in IT. When I first started doing PCs a long time ago, you used to get 5-year and 3-year warranties. And that's true of a lot of things, TVs, washing machines, whatever. If you look at what warranties are today, like 1 year, and then you have to buy the rest of the warranty. So what that tells me is that manufacturers don't trust their own equipment. Yeah, we trust it for a year. After that, you're on your own. Again, planned obsolescence. It's built to fail or not last long, hopefully, is what they're thinking. And if it blows up after 18 months, hey, you should have bought the extended warranty. It is your fault, not our fault. Anyway, I'm going on a crusade here for a minute, but let's move on to how that kind of theory of fundamental market forces affects you just wanting to have a war game, a tabletop game. It's a game. Is it really that? Yes, it is. This is why your game, once you bought it, that's what it's worth. And how does these things apply to the wargaming industry that we're talking about on this channel? Some of them you've probably spotted already, but let's jump into it. Because market saturation is the underlying thing, and stores do not recruit enough new players. New players are recruited usually by players, and having a store to go to play and look at new things is usually the people who walk in that store are people that already play. For example, a lot of stores now have kind of limited how much is played in the store, because they figured out these people are just getting in the way of selling things. They're not recruiting as much as they used to, because the market's saturated. Everybody knows about wargaming now, or most people, and they either choose to do it or don't choose to do it. And the people that choose to do it that are new, usually are coming in off of someone they know that already does it. That's my experience. If it's wrong, discussion below. Without all of this, discussion below. Keep it civil. So, the way wargaming companies, or the gaming companies, it's a form of, any entertainment company, but particular to our little niche hobby here, the way they should be doing it is the perceived obsolescence. Because then they will be coming out with new and better sculpts. And I don't mind improving my army. I don't mind adding to my army. I don't want my army to go away. And if you're going to get rid of a line of models that you produce, take them away and replace them. Then you sell more. That's the way it kind of should be done, I think. Okay? But they don't as much. I mean, sometimes they do. I'm not going to say nobody does. Yes, they do. Of course they do. But a lot of them don't. And the reason they don't is because it's a risk. How many people are going to replace? You're not going to sell as many. It's not something they need. It's something they want. You'd rather sell them something they need. It's also a higher energy. And also, in my opinion, discussed below, is, once companies get big enough, the creativity that got them there goes away and is replaced by bean countering. So the bean counters make those decisions, not the creative people. Creative people come up with a thing, put it in front. The bean counters figure out the risk and reward. Usually the risk is too high, the reward too low. But they also know they got to bring something out new, so it all goes through all these kinds of filters that just, blocks, in my opinion, creativity. So that's the way I think they should be getting around the saturation problem, is keep expanding and offering newer stuff. Don't take away the old stuff without replacing it, add new stuff. But the way they do it a lot of times is the systematic obsolescence. That's where they, they'll just drop lines and say, well, no one's buying these, we're just going to drop them. Then in the system, so in the new edition, these won't exist anymore. So then we go out and buy edition, I don't know, whatever edition we're on. That also powers the editions. So let's say we have an edition of a war game that we like and everybody likes, everybody buys into this. Why would we need a version 3.0? Now, the one argument says, well, it's because there's all these FAQs, rules addendums, yada yada, puts them all in one place. Haven't got a problem with that. But I think you'll find that a lot of rules editions will change the product integrally. It will drop lines. It will change lines. It will make some lines less attractive and other lines more attractive. So they can swap around, what they sell, how they sell it. That's systematic, obsolete. That's how they do it, I think. The other way of doing it is they'll do... I remember when the army books came out and the newest army was the strongest army. They're making older armies obsolete through, how strong the newer ones were. So people would, as they're coming towards it, I've been collecting one of the older armies. I get my ass kicked, so I'm going to start collecting one of the newer ones so I can get competitive again. And if that happens over 3 or 4 years, people play intensively, let's say for a year, their army's complete after 18 months, I don't know. And then they're like, well, I need another army. This new book's coming out. I'm going to get this army because, I'm sick of getting beat. It's a thing. It's a tactic. Discuss. And then the other one, the big guys use the legal obsolescence too. I say big guys, companies that have a structure. So tournaments and all that kind of things where it's a structured, ordered thing. It's not just a casual hobby, but everything's structured. They will use legal obsolescence. So, for example, they have an IP. So you cannot get a third-party named thing that looks like their thing. That's their IP. That's legal obsolescence. They own it, so they can keep it or they can kill it, and there's nothing you can do about that. Also, they'll use hard rules on tournament play. You use their product the way they intend it to be used, or you're not in. That keeps everything, bowed to their will. And, it's kind of a fascist way of doing things, but I get it. They're companies, and, creativity goes away, and, the bean countery, which is tied to the legal teams, comes in, and that's how they do it. And I'm not bitching about it. I'm just saying that it's not just gaming people that do this. Everybody does this. Every big enough company will do this. So, not a bitching, well, kind of is, but it's not. It's not a bashing insert name of company here. It's just a general, this is how things work. Now that we know these things, I mean, we all knew them anyway. I've just kind of laid them out on the table to look at and inspect. We can think about, okay, well, how do we get around this? I mean, I can't do it much on a lot of things that I buy, but, this is just my hobby. For the love of God, I do not want to work this hard at my hobby and be that annoyed about something I do for fun to relax, and then all of a sudden I'm not relaxing because I'm getting wound up about it. Number one way of avoiding this is, and I found this. See, this is what set me on this rabbit hole. I found this. Warhammer Ancient Battles. Here's the thing. If you play historical war games, I'm not saying you should. I'm saying if you look at the historical war game community even, Warlord Games and Pike and Shot and all these guys, they have to handle things differently. They have to do the obsolescence in a nice way, because you cannot change the historical units. I can't say, right, I own Celts and Romans. No, you don't. and I can get Celts and Romans from anywhere. I can pick the ones I like, so which means you have to produce really good ones that I like. See, it's a competition. It brings competition back in. If you play fantasy or sci-fi, they own the designs, they own the naming standards. You know, you cannot have a Space Marine. And the reason that Warhammer never followed this Ancient Battles thing through is because they couldn't IP it. One of the big reasons they killed the Old World is because they couldn't IP a lot of it. So, if you're going to play fantasy and sci-fi, you have to figure out the ones that don't care about IP. For example, one-page rules. I'm saying you have to play these games. I'm just saying, to get outside of it, or not even step into it in the first place if you're just starting. Look at the ones that don't care about IP. Because then they are model agnostic. So you can get your models from anywhere. Their rules is what they sell. And if they change all the rules or the armies, it doesn't really matter because all you're buying is the rules. So, you'll be out a $20 rule book or whatever it is. Or a free PDF, a lot of them. So when you're looking for a new game to play, either you're new to playing war games or you're saying, screw this, I've had enough, I'm going to go play something else. One of the things to keep in mind is how IP specific are they? Mech Warrior, for example. Love that game. And then they had this big IP fight with like Robotech and everything else and went away. But they've come back and that is a fun game. They own the IP, but they don't, I don't know, unless it changes, but they don't force it down your throat. They make enough money off of the computer games and all the other stuff from the IP. The tabletop is good. Now, I wouldn't go around and start making mechs in their name because they'll probably sue me, but they don't. Their old stuff is historically old stuff, and you can still field it, like the little Irby mechs and the, Against the Clan Marauder, Mad Cat. So, these things, they're kind of a historical game, and they own it, but they keep it historical. You can still go back and get the old things. So, and also, they don't make the miniatures, so they'll license them out. They don't care. Which is what I said back in my video about Games Workshop. Instead of just saying, you can't get these anymore and we're going to kill them all off, just license them out. If you're not selling enough of them, people still want them or will still want them, not in great amounts. Okay, so license them. Let someone else make them. But anyway, I'm getting off the track. So, one of the ways out of being your armies or your game being wiped out is don't play fantasy and sci-fi, play historical. If you want to play fantasy and sci-fi, go for a company that are model agnostic. Kings of War, for example. Try it. One-page rules. There's tons of them. So the next one is getting around that, I call it kind of, it's like the right to repair block that companies put on. So 3D printing to continue minis. If a company owns the IP of a line and they say, right, this is done, we're not going to do these anymore. There are designs out there on the interwebs and you can make your own. It's your right to repair your army. You can't get the parts anymore, but you can. So, 3D printing is part of that solution of taking away that power they have of saying, look, we're just not going to produce that anymore and block you. Well, they can't anymore because you're repairing your army. Let's call it like that. I don't know why I bunched this with right to repair because it kind of is in my mind. It might not be in yours. Discuss. The other thing you can do, so my wraparound of the planned obsolescence, what you can do is stick to an edition. The reason that I did the Return to Old World, that I got back into this game, is I kind of got my gaming got brutally cut off when they blew up the old world. All right, I wasn't playing it very much anymore, but it was always something I thought, well, I can go back to. And there are online things. But when they came out with the old world, in my mind it clicked. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this edition. I'm going to stick with this edition. This is my last edition. It's probably theirs too, maybe. But either way, pick an edition. And if it's an edition you like, and I don't dislike this edition, so this is the edition I'm going to stick with, and keep that in your mind. Now, that's not oh god, if they do come out with another edition that I like and it doesn't blow up my armies, of course I'm going to move to that edition. But in my mind, whichever edition I buy from this point on is the last edition I'm going to buy. If they bring out another edition and they screw everything up and I don't like it, it's not going to bother me because I've had my edition and I built my armies up around that edition. That's the edition I'm going to play. Which kind of screws you if everybody else moves on, which is why my idea is if you are in a group where you all play regularly, just upgrade editions by committee. I mean, sit down, have a meeting saying, look, how many people are going to lose their armies? Is it worth it? You know, are we going to start losing people from the group? Just stick to this edition. Done. And maybe that's the way it works. I'm a little, out there in the ether, flapping in the wind myself. So, discuss. And then the final point being is, because it's wargaming, it's not a TV or a movie or anything like that. Legally, what do they really own? Now that I've bought Warhammer rules, I own those rules for me to do what I want with, as long as I don't reproduce them and sell them, obviously. So they have really no control. I'm not talking Games Workshop, I'm talking Warlord Games. Or Advanced Squad Leader by, it's not Avalon Hill anymore, but, I can take those games and do what I want with them. So, for example, Bold Action, I like the game very much. What I don't like is the bloody scale. So, there's nothing stopping me taking Bold Action and playing it at a different scale. Or, I can do what I want. I don't have to play in tournaments. Which is the other thing. It's the only way they control anymore is through saying, well, what used to be a creative game for creative people, we are now going to bend it to our will. And if you don't do exactly what we say, you're not in the party anymore. That's fine. If you've got a group of people and you want to use proxies, use proxies. As long as people agree in a group. The smaller the group, the easier it is to get away with that. I understand. If you've got 20 people, it's harder to get a consensus. But they don't control you in any way, legally or otherwise. You can use whatever miniatures you want. You have the law to stick to and immerse yourself in. But as far as the gaming part goes, do what you want. I mean, everybody's getting so bent out of shape at the moment about are there female space marines and stuff. It's a piece of plastic. Hasn't got genitals. In the law, space marines probably don't have genitals. So, I don't know. I don't care. People just get so bent out of shape about stuff. Here I am now. I'm probably going to get some bad stuff on the comments. Or it's going to get political. Don't. That's just the thing. So, anyway. In conclusion, the planned obsolescence is going to happen with every company that gets above a certain size. And we know this. And once you lay it all out on the table, the ways this is done and why it's done, we can think about, okay, we know this is going to happen. How can I get around it? How can I, evade the worst consequences of it in something that I don't want to think hard about very much. For me, it's a game, it's a hobby, it's a pastime. It gives me release when I'm not working. It's something I'm supposed to enjoy and not get bent out of shape over. And when you know what's probably coming down the pipeline, once you're in a good place and you understand that this is mine, I bought it, it's mine. It's not a company's anymore. I can do what I want with it. And because I have to interact with other people, there has to be a consensus, which the company thinks it controls because it's the consensus of everybody that's ever bought this, but it's not. It's a consensus of who you play with and play against, that small community, which they don't control. They'd like to. So, thanks for watching this far, if you did. And again, comment below, keep it civil, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm not a professional YouTuber, I just do this because. And have fun.
Like and subscribe, or the Inquisition will come pay you a little visit.